Welcome back to the Full Spectrum Show. Today we are looking into Ukrainian small arms. And are they having issues? Looking into this a bit more, we can see that they are starting to use DP-27s, which were developed before World War II. But they are still quite effective. They are still good designed weapons, and obviously they went through multiple wars and have seen many conflicts, and has been quite a successful and reputable firearm. We've also seen many pictures and videos of Ukrainian soldiers using things like Maxim guns, which are also a World War I era gun. And of course, you got cutouts of people using not real guns, and, pictures of Ukrainian soldiers using a mix of AK-47s, AK-74s, and AR-15s. And I just got to say, what a nightmare for logisticals. I mean, if you're all using different ammunition, that's just really difficult. I can only imagine the logistics behind all this. And also, if you're in a squad where it's really hard to interchange magazines. Well, you can't interchange weapons or magazines or things like that with these huge variety of cartridges. But is this a huge problem? I don't know. In terms of ammunition supply, I would imagine that it's difficult to keep all those different ammunition types on hand. But as far as old weapons go, I don't think this is really as big of a deal as people are making out to be. We can see that these weapons have been implemented through many wars and have been very successful. And many units still use heavier caliber weapons like 7.62 by 54R or 54 rimmed, like we see in this Maxim gun, or also with the DP-27 fires. And these are essentially cartridges that are used as full battle rifle cartridges. These are cartridges that are very effective against modern infantry, even with body armor and things like that. They're very powerful rounds. So I don't think that this is such an issue. In fact, I think it just shows how well made these firearms were even back then. It's crazy to me. And we've also seen other crazy things like these guns, a PTRS-41 and PTRD-41 in action in Ukraine. And there's tons and tons of pictures, and a lot of people might look at that and think, oh, that's a homemade rifle, right? No, this is an old World War II anti-tank rifle is what this is. And clearly it's still being used to at least decent effect in modern combat. Anti-personnel, anti-emplacement. I'm not sure, depending on the thickness of the armor of the current vehicles in the field, may or may not be effective against those, but they're still extremely large rounds. I mean, I think this is actually, that round that we can see in this picture right here is coming out of that PTRD. It's quite, and that's just the case for it. These are huge rifles, and they have massive firepower. It's basically bringing Barretts, like they're basically old day 50 caliber sniper rifles, although I believe these are larger than 50 cal. So pretty impressive. And we can see that some people are making, homemade stuff like for attachments and things like that, putting pick rails on them and mounting them in the back of trucks, which is actually an excellent idea, I think. Very cool. That's a little bit of a bummer, seeing some serious history though, rotting away, being destroyed, and all in all, it's pretty crazy that these things are still so effective that they're being used today. And it just really speaks to the longevity of these weapon systems. And is it really that big of a deal to be using weapon systems that are this old? I personally don't think so. As long as they're still working and they still seem to be accurate and they're still viable options, even in modern day wars, many World War II and especially World War I rifles would still do what you'd want it to do in a modern conflict. And I think full auto is kind of really overplayed anyways. I mean, yes, it's great to have things like the Maxim and DP-27 for suppressive fire, and if you're doing charges like, back in World War I, machine guns were extremely effective, I think as small arms have developed and tactics have developed, semi-auto seems way more effective, way more accurate. It's just a better platform in general, unless for very specific use case situations where you're, suppressing targets. That's obviously full auto is better there. And, just for an example of this thought process, this process of thought, we could see these Portuguese troops in 2018 in Africa. They're using full modern equipment, everything. And this might look like a modern rifle because they definitely have done some modernization to it. But this is a rifle from the 60s. This is a G3. So these things, and this is a this is a battle rifle cartridge firing rifle as well. 7.62 by 51 NATO. And obviously they've been using them to great effect in modern conflicts still. So I think using old guns is little underestimated. I mean, the United States went into Afghanistan, and most of those AKs were AKs captured or, given from when the Russians were invading Afghanistan. So those were extremely old rifles, and clearly they were still able to mount effective forces to combat the Americans when we were there. So I don't think it's a ludicrous idea at all to be using old weaponry that still clearly has been kept in decent shape to combat modern warfare. I mean, it's in the development of small arms, we haven't really come all that far. Sure, modern firearms are definitely more reliable, no doubt about that, but in terms of ballistics, we are still waiting for basically the next generation squad weapon to bring us further into lighter ammunition and faster velocities and further ranges. We're still looking at basically a lot of the same cartridges or light cartridges that we were shooting back in World War I, and for the case of 7.62 by 54 rim, even longer. That's the longest serving cartridge. I think it came into play in the 1890s at some point. So that's a cartridge that has been serving for a long time, and it sure looks like it's going to be serving far into the future as well. So what do you guys think? Do you think that this is going to be a problem using these old firearms in modern warfare, or do you think that it's absolutely a viable option to be using old firearms? I think it's sad that, this is where they're being deployed in actual war. It's a bummer to see that, we are at war in the first place, of course, but it'd be great to have some of these historical guns in collectors' hands, I think, and not on the front line of a battlefield. But at the same time, I will never blame somebody for, using what they have. It only makes sense. So that's my thoughts on it. What do you guys think? I appreciate you swinging by for the full spectrum.